Alright, so we're trying to figure out the order of operations how to do this, and this pan was pretty dirty, so we went and basically did the final clean on it. But we're probably going to have to redo it in a minute. So we want to paint the transmission, but we kind of run into a problem. If we don't have the pan on the transmission, when we're cleaning, dirt can get inside, and that's a huge risk. And basically I was going to try taping up the bottom to seal it, but then I thought about it and I'm like, well, if acetone and brake parts cleaner gets on the tape, it'll peel off and then dirt could still get in. So for safety, we're just going to put the pan on with a gasket. I know I could try to put a whole bunch of steps where I put it together with a different gasket and then clean it and then take it apart and blah blah blah, but I think what we're going to end up doing, we're just going to take the pan with the new gasket, bolt it on, torque it up so it's done, and then we're going to take the whole trans and put it on a bench, not this bench but this other one over there, and basically start cleaning. And we'll mask off like the dipstick hole, the input and output shafts, and whatever else. We're basically just going to start cleaning this thing with like a wire wheel and acetone and all that and get it as clean as we can. Alright, so we just did our final clean on the trans, got everything wiped off, acetoned, pretty much looks spotless. Here's our pan about to go on. We got the new gasket on. This is that cheap gasket. But I tell you what, this looks really nice. I think this looks better than that expensive one I bought. And it had a paper one before. I hate paper gaskets, so I'm just going to assume this is better than that. So a couple things to note, you can see there's a couple of cutaways. So the way I'm holding this is the way it's going to get installed on the trans. So it goes on like this, and you'll see there's a cutaway kind of on the side and at the bottom. And if you look at the bottom, that's where this little indentation comes down. So that means all this crap here, all this whole area, no gasket's even going to be there. It's only going to be on the bottom. So it's really important that that bottom seals. And then over here you've got that step, and it looks like it's going to seal here, and I bet it runs out right before it gets a good seal on that ID. So here, this little channel will probably fill with oil, and it's going to be dependent on that outside right there to keep it sealed. So fingers crossed, but I like how it looks. It looks like it fits good. It fits tight around the bolts, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's actually holding the bolts in right now, so about to bolt this sucker up. Alright, we just got this bolted up. So to be honest, I actually didn't use a torque wrench. I used a T-handle Allen, and I just basically did this by hand. They're pretty snug. They're probably around 15 to 20 foot-pounds, if I had to guess. I drew it down real slow and extremely even, and really watched the gasket. And basically you can tell it's got a little bit of squeeze on it. It's kind of hard to get the camera to show that, but I tightened it enough that you're compressing that gasket so it kind of bulges a little right where it's being pinched. So I know, basically I'm pretty sure that this isn't going to leak, not because of the gasket at least. It looks like it's pretty well, it's got some compression squeezing it. So if you kind of look here, it kind of looks like it's bulging a little bit. That's basically the gasket's getting squished, and then it expands as soon as it comes out from the metal, which means it's pinched in between, and that's where it should seal. So pretty happy with that, and we'll keep on going. Ta-da! That's about 2 hours with a wire wheel. We're not finished yet. There's a lot of spots we couldn't get to, little corners and stuff, but we got 95% of the paint off this thing at this point, and actually down to clean metal. Some of it's hard to see because it's dark. I mean, this thing's pretty clean. You can see like down there in that corner, and look around here, there's some corners I couldn't get to. And we're about to try to get those with either a small wire brush or a small wire wheel or something. But yeah, this thing cleaned up pretty good. So we'll keep going. Alright, I know what you're thinking. It looks like someone spent hours cleaning this case to get every little speck of dirt, oil, corrosion, oxidation, paint, and everything off of it. And yep, that's pretty much what happened. Sweet Jesus, this is a lot of work. We got it pretty damn good. You gotta remember, this is like a transmission from the 60s or whatever, old as hell. And it cleaned up pretty nice. So with that said, we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do next. We still got the bell housing, and it needs to get cleaned. So I guess we're gonna do that next. And I'm trying to decide if we may bolt that up before we paint this to where it gets painted as an assembly. One of the reasons, this little pump on the front, the bell housing bolts go through it, and right now, since it's only got one bolt, there's oil dripping out between the pump and the case because I filled all that with oil when I built it. So that's kind of annoying. It keeps dripping out slowly. It keeps getting slower, but it's still dripping. I don't want to mess it up my paint. So we'll see. We may throw that bell housing on here before we paint it. But we're getting there. This thing's getting cleaned up pretty nice. Alright, so we got this all cleaned up. We even did the bell housing. Here it is. Got this thing cleaned inside and out. Looks pretty nice. We actually, back when we originally made this, we must have wire wheeled it and got it pretty clean, because this only took like 20 minutes to get cleaned up. So here's the custom part. It doesn't look super pretty, but this was made in probably early 2017, so it's about 4 years old. So Marshall had mentioned this is a bell housing for like an older Miata that had an auto, and basically I bought this, put it in the car. Let me rephrase that. Sorry, I didn't buy it. I bought it and I took it and machined this center section. So some of those holes are the original bolt holes and some of them are new. And then this entire bore, it was, I think it was too big, so I had to weld it up and then machine it back to the right size. And what I'm describing might sound like, oh, that might be some work. This took like a week or two. It was a lot of work, like hour after hour. I could do a whole video on what it took to build a custom bell housing. But this is what it looks like. So we're not going to paint the inside, because if we ever have to get in here and weld, I'll be hating myself in case we have to repair this one day. So we're going to leave the inside the way it is, but we are going to paint the outside to match the trans. So we're about to bolt this thing up. And there's the bolts. We've already cleaned these. We're going to use, since this is a race car, we're going to put racing oil on them. Now it's the manufacturer told me you lightly oil these and then torque them to, I believe, 45. And so we're about to do that. Last time I over oiled them, so this time I'm going to be more careful. Just barely oil them, and then we'll throw these on and torque them up. Alright, well, news. So we got the bell housings torqued up. As you can see, they're all torqued to 45 except this one. So we torqued them all to 40, and then we went back and hit them with 45. So the spec actually says 40, but the people that make it, pretty sure they told me 45. And I would definitely rather have these tighter than looser, because I've had this gasket block before. So I got them all to 45, or all to 40, and then I went to 45, and I basically did like this one, this one, this one, this one. And anyway, whenever I got to that one, it went up a tiny bit, and then I felt it felt like it tried to back off, and I was like, uh-oh, I think I stripped it. I mean, I barely turned it, and I was like, all right, let me try one more time. And it came up a little over 30, and it moved, and I stopped. So I just put that it's at 30. So that kind of sucks. Hate to say it, but we're probably going to run this the way it is. It's like Memorial Day weekend. Don't know if I can get parts to fix this, and if I was going to fix it, the right thing to do would basically be to just helicoil all of these, because these are steel bolts going in an aluminum case. And if you look over here, this is basically where those bolts go in. They're really not that deep, because this is hollow back here. You got to remember the oil pump goes in, so you really only got threads like that tiny little bit. It ain't much. So I'm sure it probably twisted the threads in the housing, because it's old as shit. So that sucks. Presumably it wasn't like that before. Well, it went to 40, so yeah, I guess not. So that kind of sucks, but it's probably okay. I wish that didn't happen. I guess the good news is at least it's right in the middle of all these other bolts that are torque tight. Because I kind of doubt that the one that's behind that is actually at 45, because it's an Allen head. It's probably torqued to like 30 something as well, kind of coincidentally. So, and I think this is the inlet and outlet of the pump down here, so at least these bolts are all torqued real tight. So anyway, it's probably okay. We're just going to run this the way it is. Kind of feel bad to do all this awesome work and then leave that the way it is. But I've got it documented. I'll get some helicoil stuff ordered. So basically the worst case with this is that we put it in the car and then pump gasket starts leaking. We've seen that happen before. So if that happens, it doesn't hurt anything. It just leaks. So if it starts leaking, we'll know that, you know, A, we got to change the pump gasket, and B, while we're in there, we'll redo all of these. We're not just going to, if we pull this for any reason, we're going to helicoil all of these, because funny enough, I'll show you this. These rear, where these mounts go, these have helicoils in them. So whoever messed with this housing a while back, helicoiled both of these. So which isn't surprising because they're just like the fronts, real thin, and they got big bolts that go in. So, yep, that's just kind of good practice on older stuff or really anything race car to use helicoils when you're going into aluminum. So, anyway, it's noted. Next time this comes apart, this will all get helicoiled. But kind of figured I should document it that way. If I don't forget, you know, if I don't forget in the future what actually happened. Here it is. We got all the prep work. Actually, there's one thing left to do, I just realized, but basically all the prep work's done. We masked off the parts that we don't want paint on. The should be about it. We got it. We've wiped this thing down with acetone like 10 times at this point. So that's about as clean as it's going to get. And we're about to paint it black. Alright, well, we just got done spraying this. So, looks pretty good. Since it's a cast surface, you don't get quite the sheen you do on like a drive shaft. But, I mean, this looks way better than before. I'm pretty happy with it. Hopefully it looks like roughly like this when it dries. We'll have to spray the bottom of the oil pan later, since we can't get to it now. We did spray the sides. Yeah, fucking looks good. We'll see what happens when it dries, but as of now, I mean, look at that. Alright guys, I think we're about to knock off for the night. But we kind of got where we were hoping. We got this trans painted. So we'll still have to do the bottom of the pan. We'll do that, I don't know, whenever this dries we can flip it over and spray the bottom. But we pretty much got everything else painted. So, turned out pretty good, and I guess next we'll be probably putting this in the car. Trying to think if we're missing anything that's really critical. I know I need to order some stuff, so I'll probably do that either tonight or tomorrow. But, yeah, overall this turned out pretty good. And it's going to look a lot better, you know, between that and the new drive, or not new drive shaft, but the repainted that drive shaft to match with this. Should look a lot better. Alright, I'll take it easy. Man, you gotta love this. Car sitting lowered with the top off and the hood off and the bumper. Looks crazy. Looks kind of race car.